The road narrowed into a twisting lane bordered by thick pines and sagging fences as the Carter family's SUV crawled toward the house. The late summer sun burned low on the horizon, staining the sky with bruised shades of violet and orange. Julia Carter, her hands locked around the steering wheel, tried to hide her unease beneath a smile. "Almost there," she said, glancing at her daughter in the rearview mirror. 12-year-old Lily sat curled against the window, earbuds dangling unused around her neck. She didn't answer. She had spent the last 3 hours watching the trees blur past, their branches clawing at the glass like fingers. To her, the countryside felt too empty, too old, like the landscape itself was holding its breath. Mark Carter, riding shotgun, unfolded the printed directions again, though he'd memorized them. "It should be right after the bend," he said, more to himself than to anyone else. His voice carried a note of forced enthusiasm, the same tone he used when explaining to Julia why this move was the best decision for all of them. The SUV crested the bend, and there it was, the house. It rose out of the clearing like a relic that time had forgotten 3 stories of weather-beaten wood and sagging shutters. The roof pitched steeply, its slate tiles mottled with moss. A wide porch stretched across the front, its railing warped like crooked teeth. 2 black windows on the second floor seemed to stare down at them, unblinking. Julia parked at the foot of the gravel drive. No one spoke for a moment. Even the chirping of crickets seemed muted. "Well," Mark said with a grin that was too quick, "it's bigger than the pictures, isn't it?" "It's old," Julia replied, her voice measured. She didn't want to ruin this for him, not after the months he had spent convincing her. The house had been cheap, nearly a steal, and they both agreed they needed a new start after Mark lost his job in the city. Lily muttered from the back seat, "It looks haunted." "Don't be dramatic," Mark said, though his laugh sounded nervous. "It just needs a little love." Inside, the air smelled of dust and stale wood, as if the house had been holding its breath for decades. Floorboards groaned beneath their feet. Cobwebs clung stubbornly to the corners. The entry hall opened into a parlor with faded wallpaper patterned with roses, their colors long since bled away. "This was built in 1890, Mark said, brushing his hand along the banister. "Solid construction. Houses like this," Julia cut him off softly. "Houses like this hold memories." She hadn't meant to say it aloud, but the words slipped out. Lily wandered up the creaking staircase, ignoring her parents. She moved as if pulled by something. The second floor stretched in a narrow corridor lined with doors. Dust motes spun in the slant of evening light. She tried each handle until one door opened easily into a bedroom at the end of the hall. It was bare, just a bed frame, a dresser, and most striking of all, a tall mirror fixed to the wall across from the bed. Its frame was carved from dark mahogany, the edges curling like vines. The glass was clean, too clean, as though someone had polished it recently while the rest of the house rotted around it. Lily froze. For a split second, she thought her reflection hadn't moved with her. She tilted her head, and the girl in the mirror tilted a heartbeat too late. Her stomach knotted. "Mom," she called, her voice sharp. Julia appeared in the doorway, brushing her hair from her face. "What is it, honey?" "The mirror." Lily started, but when she looked back, her reflection copied her perfectly. Nothing strange. Just a girl with wide, frightened eyes staring at herself. Julia stepped inside and ran her fingers along the frame. "It's beautiful. Probably worth more than anything else in this place." "It's creepy," Lily whispered. Mark arrived, carrying a box under one arm. "Perfect room for you, kiddo. Big window, good light. And hey, you've got your own antique mirror. Don't teenagers love that?" "I don't," Lily said firmly. But her parents were already too busy setting down luggage, too wrapped up in the logistics of unpacking to notice the way their daughter lingered at the edge of the rug, refusing to step closer to the glass. That night, the family ate takeout on the porch, listening to the crickets finally gather their courage to sing again. Mark tried to lighten the mood, talking about repainting the shutters and planting a garden. Julia smiled where she could, but her eyes drifted back to the looming windows. And Lily couldn't stop glancing up at the second floor, where she knew the mirror waited in the dark, reflecting something she wasn't sure belonged to her world at all. The first night in the house passed without sleep. Lily lay in her new bed, staring at the mirror across the room. The moonlight poured through the window, silvering the floorboards, and the mirror drank it all in. Her reflection stared back at her in the pale glow, identical in posture and expression. For hours, she refused to close her eyes. Every creak of the house sounded amplified. Every shadow stretched unnaturally long. Finally, exhaustion won. When she woke, morning light was streaming through the curtains, but something felt wrong. It took her a moment to realize the mirror. Her reflection was smiling. Not just a vague trick of the light, not a twitch of her lips. A wide, unmistakable smile. But Lily was not smiling. She sat frozen, her breath caught in her throat, staring into her own eyes as the reflection's grin slowly faded until the glass showed her true expression once again. She screamed. Julia came running in, still tying her robe. "What is it? What happened?" "The mirror," Lily shouted, pointing with a trembling hand. It was smiling at me." Julia's gaze flicked to the glass, then back to her daughter. "Sweetheart, you had a nightmare. It's your imagination. First nights in a new place are always hard." "I wasn't dreaming," Lily snapped, but her voice broke, sounding more desperate than defiant. Mark appeared behind Julia, rubbing his eyes. "What's all the yelling? Did a spider attack?" "It wasn't a spider." Lily's face flushed with anger. "It was the mirror. It's not right." Mark crossed into the room and stood in front of the glass, inspecting it. He even tapped his knuckle against it, producing a dull thud. "Looks fine to me. Solid, old craftsmanship. We'll keep it here. It fits the room." "No!" Lily shouted, startling both her parents. "Get it out." Julia and Mark exchanged a look, one of those silent conversations parents have. Julia finally sighed. "We'll talk about it later. For now, let's just focus on settling in." She guided Mark back out of the room before Lily could protest further. Alone again, Lily turned back toward the mirror. Her reflection stared back, obediently, perfectly matched. But the memory of that grin lingered like a shadow on her mind. The day stretched with the monotony of unpacking. Mark carried boxes from the SUV. Julia tried to scrub years of dust from the cabinets. Lily wandered, restless. By late afternoon, she found herself in the hallway upstairs again, standing before the bedroom door. She didn't want to go inside, yet something tugged at her, insistent. She stepped in cautiously. The mirror was waiting. The sunlight angled in, catching the glass at a strange tilt. Lily frowned. Something about the reflection seemed off. The wallpaper behind her looked darker in the mirror. The dresser appeared shifted slightly closer to the bed. She stepped left. The girl in the mirror stepped right, perfectly aligned. But then, when Lily bent down to pick up a stray sock, she noticed the reflection's hand lingered in the air, fingers flexing, as though the mirrored girl wasn't holding anything at all. Her throat tightened. She stood quickly. The reflection snapped back into sync, blank-eyed and silent. "Stop it," she whispered to the glass, but the mirror didn't listen. That night, Julia tucked Lily in, brushing her hair back. "You'll feel better once school starts. It's just nerves." Lily didn't argue. She was too tired. But once the room went dark, her eyes opened again, fixed on the glass. The reflection lay there too, unmoving. For a long time, nothing stirred. But then so faint she almost thought she imagined it. The mirrored Lily blinked a fraction too late. And then she smiled. Not wide this time. Just a slow, knowing curl of the lips. Lily clutched her blanket tight to her chest, her heart hammering, while the girl in the mirror smiled wider and wider. Lily tried to convince herself she had imagined it, Mirrors played tricks. Everyone knew that. But the weight of the reflection's smile clung to her thoughts through the day like cobwebs she couldn't shake. By the third night, the house had grown quieter. Too quiet. No cars on the distant road, no owls in the trees. Just silence, pressing against the walls. She lay in bed, staring at the mirror again. She promised herself she wouldn't look, but her eyes slid toward it anyway, drawn by some invisible pull. The reflection was waiting. This time, it wasn't sleeping. It sat upright on the bed, even though Lily herself was still lying down. Her breath hitched. Slowly, she sat up, mirroring the mirrored girl. For a brief second, they were the same again, perfectly aligned. But the glass shimmered faintly, like the surface of a pond touched by rain. The reflection raised its hand. So did Lily, without thinking. Their palms hovered inches apart, separated only by the thin barrier of glass. Then Lily felt it, cold, wet. Her skin tingled, as if the surface of the mirror had melted into water. Her eyes widened. She tried to pull back, but her reflection pressed harder, and Lily's hand began to sink into the glass. The chill surged up her arm, and for a heartbeat she was drowning in ice. "Lily!" Her mother's voice snapped her back. Julia stood in the doorway, clutching a glass of water, her face pale. Lily yanked her hand away. The mirror rippled once, then stilled. The reflection was lying down again, innocent, silent. Julia hurried across the room. "What were you doing?" I don't know," Lily whispered, cradling her hand. It still burned with cold. Julia frowned, staring at the mirror. For the first time, a shiver ran down her spine. "You've been having nightmares, that's all. Go to sleep." She kissed Lily's forehead quickly, but her hand lingered on her daughter's trembling arm. Then she left, closing the door behind her. But Julia didn't sleep that night either. She lay awake beside Mark, staring at the ceiling, her mind circling back to the look in Lily's eyes, the raw fear. The following day, Julia found herself in Lily's room. She stood before the mirror in the afternoon light, her own reflection gazing back. She leaned closer, almost daring it to move. Nothing, just her tired eyes, the streak of gray in her hair. She turned to leave, but in the corner of her vision, she caught it. Her reflection had not turned away with her. Julia froze. Slowly, she turned her head back. The glass was empty. For a full 3 seconds, the mirror reflected nothing at all. No bed, no walls, no Julia. Just a blank, gray fog. Then, as quickly as it had vanished, her reflection snapped back, perfectly aligned, staring directly at her with wide, knowing eyes. Julia stumbled out of the room, slamming the door behind her. That evening, Lily refused to sleep alone. Mark insisted she was too old for such dramatics, but Julia let her daughter curl up on the couch downstairs. Around midnight, Lily stirred. A sound had woken her. A voice. It came from upstairs, from her bedroom. Whispers, faint as breath against glass. "Come play. Come see." Lily crept halfway up the staircase before she stopped herself. Her bare feet tingled on the wooden steps, the air colder with each breath. She knew where the voice was leading. The mirror. Something inside her wanted to obey, to press her hand against the glass again, to see what lay on the other side. She was almost at her bedroom door when Julia caught her. "Lily!" Julia's whisper was harsh, desperate. She grabbed her daughter by the shoulders. "What are you doing?" "They're calling me," Lily said, her eyes wide and unfocused. "They want me to come." Julia pulled her back, clutching her tight. "Don't listen. Don't you ever listen." From inside the room, the whispering grew louder. It wasn't just voices now. It was laughter. Childlike, brittle, wrong. And then 3 sharp knocks against the inside of the mirror. The knocks echoed long after Julia had dragged Lily downstairs. The sound reverberated in her skull, as if the house itself carried the pulse of it. Mark, half asleep and irritated, brushed it off when Julia tried to explain. "It's an old mirror. It creaks." "She's overtired. You're overtired," he muttered, rolling over on the couch. But Julia couldn't unhear that laughter, couldn't forget the icy emptiness in the glass. The next morning, Mark went upstairs determined to prove there was nothing wrong. He opened Lily's bedroom door. Sunlight streamed in. The mirror looked ordinary, tall, rectangular, framed in dark oak. Dust flecked the glass, but otherwise it was just a mirror. He stood in front of it, crossing his arms. "See? Nothing." Then his reflection smiled. Mark's stomach lurched. He wasn't smiling. His mouth was tight, his jaw clenched. But the man in the mirror grinned at him with teeth too white, too sharp. He staggered back. The reflection's smile faded instantly, the face aligning with his once again. He didn't tell Julia. Not yet. He convinced himself it was just sleep deprivation, just suggestion. But he began avoiding mirrors after that. Julia, meanwhile, noticed changes in Lily. The girl grew pale, quiet, her eyes shadowed. She often stared off into space, as if listening to something only she could hear. Once, Julia caught her whispering to the mirror during the day. "Who are you talking to?" she demanded. Lily blinked, as if startled awake. "My friend." "What friend?" "The girl in the mirror. She says she's me, but better." Julia's blood ran cold. She pulled Lily away, forbidding her to go near the glass again. But that night, she herself returned to it, compelled by dread. She stood before the mirror in her robe, candlelight flickering across the room. Her reflection stared back with weary eyes. For a long moment, nothing happened. Relief washed over her. Then her reflection blinked. Julia hadn't. Her reflection's expression shifted, her own face, but colder, mouth curling into a thin, hateful smirk. Julia gasped, stumbling backward, nearly knocking over the candle. The flame sputtered, shadows leaping across the walls. When she looked back, the reflection was normal again. She pressed her hand against her chest, forcing herself to breathe. But in her heart she knew. The mirror wasn't showing her. It was showing someone else. Someone who wore her skin. By the end of the week, the entire family was unraveling. Mark grew irritable and paranoid, snapping at shadows. Julia felt watched at every turn. And Lily began to change. Her laughter sounded wrong, high-pitched, metallic, echoing faintly as if bouncing inside glass. Sometimes when Julia kissed her goodnight, Lily's skin felt too cold, too smooth. One night, Julia woke to find Lily standing by the foot of her bed, watching them sleep. "Sweetheart," Julia whispered, sitting up. "What are you doing?" Lily tilted her head. Her eyes glinted strangely in the dark. "I wanted to see what it feels like." What feels like?" Lily's lips curved into a smile that was not her own. "Being you." The words were wrong. Too old. Too heavy for a child's mouth. Julia gasped, scrambling to wake Mark. By the time he stirred, Lily had already slipped back to her room, humming a tune Julia didn't recognize. The next morning, Julia confronted the mirror again. She stood before it with sunlight streaming in, determined to end this madness. But this time, there were 3 reflections. Hers, Mark's, Lily's, all of them standing together in the glass, smiling, holding hands. Behind them stretched a world bathed in gray light, endless and lifeless. Julia reached out instinctively, then stopped herself, pulling back just in time. The reflections frowned, their smiles sharpened into sneers. And then, in one synchronized motion, they all pressed their palms against the glass, beckoning her to join them. The days bled together in a haze of dread. Julia avoided the mirror, but it didn't matter. Its presence bled into every corner of the house. Sometimes she would catch a flicker in the hallway mirror, a grin darting across her reflection's lips when hers did not move. Other times, the glass on the oven door showed Lily sitting at the table when the chair was empty. Mark was unraveling fastest. He spent hours pacing in front of the bedroom mirror, muttering under his breath. Julia begged him to stop, but he claimed he had to keep watch. "If I don't," he whispered one night, eyes sunken and wild, "they'll come through. They're waiting." Julia pulled Lily close, shielding her from her father's rambling. But even Lily seemed changed now, her laughter hollow, her gaze lingering too long on empty space. That night, a crash echoed through the house. Julia bolted upright, heart hammering. The sound had come from Lily's room. She ran, Mark stumbling behind her. The bedroom door was ajar, light spilling from within. Julia froze in the doorway. Lily stood before the mirror, both hands pressed flat against the glass. Her reflection wasn't mimicking her. It was gripping her wrists from the other side. "Mommy," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "She says I belong there. She says you can take my place here." The reflection's mouth twisted into a grin. It yanked hard. Lily's arms sank into the glass as though it were water. "No!" Julia screamed, lunging forward. She grabbed Lily around the waist, pulling back with all her strength. The glass rippled like liquid, swallowing her daughter inch by inch. Mark rushed in, gripping Lily's shoulders, trying to haul her free. But the reflection on the other side was stronger. Its eyes glowed with cold light, and in its smile Julia saw not malice but hunger. "Let her go," Julia sobbed. For a moment, the mirror pulsed with resistance, pulling Lily halfway through. Julia could see the gray wasteland on the other side, stretching endless and bleak. Her daughter's reflection stood there, calm and waiting, smiling with a serenity that broke Julia's heart. Lily screamed. With one final desperate wrench, Julia and Mark yanked together. Lily tumbled backward into their arms, sobbing. The mirror surface snapped back into solid glass, but not before Julia saw it. Her own reflection, left behind in that world, staring back at her with dead eyes. They tried to cover the mirror after that. Mark draped it in sheets, nailed wood across its frame, even threatened to smash it with a hammer. But when he swung, the hammer struck nothing but air, the glass refusing to break, mocking him with its perfect surface. That night, Julia awoke to silence too deep, too unnatural. Mark wasn't beside her. Panic seized her chest. She grabbed the lantern and raced to Lily's room. The mirror was uncovered. Mark stood before it, his face slack, his body trembling. His reflection was smiling. Before Julia could scream, Mark stepped forward. The glass rippled and he was gone. Only his reflection remained, standing where he had been, smirking as it raised a finger to its lips in a gesture of silence. Julia dragged Lily out of the room, tears streaming down her face. She didn't know what the mirror wanted, why it had chosen them, or if they could ever escape. All she knew was this: the glass wasn't just showing them, it was hunting them, and sooner or later, it would want them all.